Good morning, everyone. This is Brett Simon. Thought I'd go live and take some questions, see if there's anybody around. Let me start off, as I always do over the last 18 months or so, DV 2020 and 2021. There's no news. We're still waiting for the appeals. And I know the lawyers have tried to push things along a little bit in a couple of ways, but so far there's been no movement. The other thing I want to jump into before we get many people asking questions is the visa bulletin progress or what my expectations, I guess you would say, for the visa bulletin over the next 2 months. I want to show you the data that was published yesterday by Zarthisius and just talk through that a little bit. Now, if you've seen my videos over the last few months, I have talked about one of the key indicators that I look for in terms of scheduling is how close to 70,000 people are scheduled. And I'll show you why I look at that. Perhaps that needs a little explanation. So if I just quickly show you, in 2023, there were 75,000 people in total scheduled. And if we look at 2024, let's have a look at 22 rather. You can see there were 69,500 people scheduled. Right now, so far we've had 53,500 people scheduled so far. So if the right number of people to schedule is 70,000, as I suggest it is, it's about 70,000, maybe 68,000, 69,000. 70,000, that would be enough. That would get us to enough people being scheduled for interview to allow for refusals where there are refusals, and also some 221G, etc. By scheduling about 68 to 70,000 people, you would issue more or less the 55,000 visas. Now, last year in 23, they scheduled 75,000 people. It was too many. They cancelled a lot of interviews at the last minute. That was clearly too many. They also left quite a lot of people in 221G at the end of the year, and they also cancelled some AOS cases, and they significantly overissued above the 55,000. So 75,000 is too many. In 22, they scheduled about 69,500. That was about what they needed. They actually scheduled a few more than was needed. They left less people in 221G at the end of the year, about 3,000, and they had 7,000 refused and so on. So 70,000 is a good number, right? So let's just, if you don't understand why I'm saying that, that's fine, but that's what I think is a good number. And as I say, I think that's probably about the most that we should see scheduled. Now, in the last month, for the month of July interviews, there were 3,800 cases scheduled, or about 8,200 people, okay? Now, if they did the same thing for the next month, another 8,000 people, and maybe close to that in the final month, they would be adding, let's say, about 15 or 16,000 people to scheduling on top of the 53,000 they have. That means that the 55,000 quota for the global quota is within the reach of this year's scheduling. They only have to do one more month of what they did for July. So in August, let's say they repeat that and have about 3,800 interviews, which would be about 8,000 people. And then in the final month, September, they could have even slightly less than that and still issue 55,000 visas, or 54,000, or get close to it. And so that would be kind of a good number for them to target for. So that's what I think they're going to do. Based on that, by the way, there was a YouTuber who made some predictions. And this guy is kind of funny because I listen to his videos sometimes and I wonder what on earth he is talking about. I know this process very well, but the way he describes things gets me completely lost. But interestingly, he made some predictions for the regions this month. And it couldn't be more wrong. as far as I'm concerned. It could not be more incorrect. So here's what he said. He said Africa expected between 75 and 78,000. I actually agree with that. I think that we could see Africa at about 75,000, maybe a little bit higher. So on that one region, I'm going to agree on that with him. Then for Asia and EU, he suggests that the visa bulletin number will stay the same, unchanged, or increase very, very slightly. But he's basically saying unchanged. That couldn't be more wrong. That completely misses the point, completely shows lack of understanding. And we actually do need to see the visa bulletin move for both Asia and EU in order to generate those 4,000 interviews that I'm talking about. Now, I'm well aware that there are cases already current that haven't been scheduled yet. I'm well aware of that. I understand that point, but that wasn't even this guy's point. It was I don't know. He was snatching his point from Blue Sky, I think. And then the other thing he said was that Oceania and South America would both have leaps, as he calls it. His basic premise seems to be that regions deserve to have a leap sometime. Complete nonsense, absolute bullshit. It doesn't work like that. That's not how things work. That's not why leaps happen. Anyway, it was nonsense. So on Oceania and South America, I'm actually expecting, although he's saying there's going to be big leaps in each of those regions, I'm expecting there to be very little movement in those regions, possibly even a repeat of the last numbers. So I'm expecting Oceania, for example, to end up at the end of the year at about 21 or 2100, maybe 2200, maybe 2300, but I don't see it much above that. And South America, again, probably low 3,000, so 3,300, maybe 3,500 by the end of the year. Anyway, so it would be quite interesting. The same guy also predicted we would have the visa bulletin on Friday night that's just passed. That was wrong, so that was immediately wrong. And as I say, it's going to be quite interesting because I couldn't agree with him. I couldn't agree with him less. I couldn't disagree with him more, depending on how you want to say that. The only thing I agree with is the Africa estimate of around about 75,000. I think that's actually quite reasonable. But anyway, there you go. I'm bound to be asked about what my predictions are for the months. For the last couple of months. I'm not really going to get into the last couple of months predictions precisely, but I'm going to say that I do expect movement, reasonable movement in Asia and EU, and little movement in Oceania and South America. And then for Africa, as I mentioned, I expect it to go to about 75,000 this visa bulletin, and maybe a little bit more than that in the final visa bulletin. We'll see. Okay, so let me take some questions then. Let me scroll over and scroll back and see if I can just take some questions. I'm going to try and ignore some of these repetitive questions where you're asking me to basically read tea leaves or look into a crystal ball. There's just no point in asking those questions. In the last couple of months here, we'll have to see what happens, right? Okay. What do I think about the backlog in Warsaw Embassy? They very slowly sent invite. I don't know the reasons why. We know that there was a slight decrease in the performance of Warsaw for some reason this year. Not quite sure why that is, but obviously it looks worse than it is because of the Russia restriction as well on the accept number. So it looks a little bit worse than it actually is, but we'll see. We'll see what they do in the last couple of months. When will the first set of interviews be carried out for 25? 1st of October is the very first interview that could possibly happen. But the interviews are spread out between the 1st of October and September 30th, the whole year, right? And it's only the very lowest case numbers that have been processed that will be interviewed in October. And so, if you don't have a very low case number, and if your DS-260 isn't processed by August, then you're not getting, an October interview. But there will be some interviews starting in October. Nothing before that, for absolutely no reason. Okay. Why is the visa bulletin not progressing? I've just discussed all of that. It is progressing. And if you look at the numbers that I was just showing you, you can see that the government is actually managing the process very well. They've got, I would say, reasonable control. I wish they had pushed the visa bulletin numbers a couple of months earlier, as I was suggesting they should. But some of you may remember about 3 months ago, I gave precise numbers of, in fact, I've got them here. I gave precise numbers of how many interviews each region should have on a monthly basis. And my predictions at that time were Africa needs to see about 1,700 interviews. They actually got 1,800 this month. Asia needs to see 500 on a good month. They got about 800. EU needs to see 1,000 interviews in a good month. They beat that this month, 1,018. And so, generally speaking, the scheduling that we've just seen for July is about what I'd expect it to be. I wish June had been a little bit better, so that we would have a busy June, a busy July, a busy August maybe, and then a very quiet September where they just clean up the 221Gs. That's what I would prefer. But as it is, we're going to have a quiet June, busy July, busy August, and probably a busy September, reasonably busy September. So that's not ideal, in my opinion. They're better off to do it a month earlier, but that's what they're doing. So it's not true that the visa bulletin is not progressing. It's progressing as it should be. If you expected to see Asia at 40,000 or something, or EU at 60,000, then, I'm sorry, that was never going to happen, right? And perhaps you haven't been sort of seeing what I've been saying from the very beginning. Okay. AF96K, what is my hope? Yeah, very little hope, in all honesty. We'll have to wait and see what the next visa bulletins bring us, right? Maybe if we get a big enough number this next visa bulletin, they might surprise us all and push the numbers a little bit further than is necessary. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Lots of any hope type questions. Anyway, we'll see. When will 2NL 2024 AF23K at Addis Ababa, as per your data? That'll be this month coming. 2NLs will be sent out for that number range this month, in the month of June, for August interviews. What is the deadline for DS260 submission for TV25 winners, and what is the updates with the numbers in the survey? Let me show you the survey as it stands. What was the first question? The deadline. There is no deadline. DV25 poll. Yeah, there you go. There is no deadline for the DS260 submission. There will be people who will be submitting their DS260s for DV25 right into next year, the middle of next year, like April, May, June even. That's normal. That happens every year. The majority of people obviously fill out the DS260 early and submit that in May, June, July of this year. But there's nothing that says you have to fill it in by a particular date. You could fill it in still in September 30th of next year. It would be stupid to do that. You're not going to get processed in time. There is going to be a natural cutoff point where you can no longer get processed. But there is no technical deadline on when you need to submit by. Okay, here's the survey. We had 1,300 people reported their numbers. That's a pretty good slice. And it shows, much as we've discussed before, it shows Africa numbers probably are going to run out at about 100,000. There are some numbers a little bit above 100,000, which I think are generally mistakes. There might be some case numbers just above 100,000, but not very many. For Asia, the number cuts off at about 30,000, and then a very few reports, half a dozen reports of case numbers above 30,000. I think those are mistakes. So I think the Asia number goes up to about 30,000. And for EU, Again, I think it's up to about 41,000. I think there are some higher reports here, but I think they tend to be mistakes. And then Oceania, 3,700. 3,700 seems to be a very clear cut. There are no cases reported at 3,800 or above. There are several cases that are in the 3,700 range. So that looks to be a very accurate assessment. For South America, we're a little bit low in South America. We've only got 27 reports. So I don't really trust South American number quite so much. Could be 2,700 or so, but I don't entirely believe it. And we do see some reports at 4,000 or so. So I think that's probably that's probably too little data for us to form a decent opinion on. Like if you look at the other small region, Oceania, we have 98 reports, right? So I'm much more inclined to believe the 98 reports and a very solid cutoff here than I am prepared to believe the South America reports at the moment. So that's where the data stands for that. This is a silly question, frankly. My case number is 2024 AS 13,200. So you're about to go current, right? And you're asking, what are your chances? Well, your chances of going current are very obvious, right? You will go current. The chances of getting an interview might be different, right? Depends on your embassy, your location, and all of those things. I don't know those things, but the chance of getting current, yes, absolutely. You're going to get current. It's almost a silly question to ask, frankly, but there you go. Could I talk about Kigali embassy performance prediction for the few months remaining? I can't. This is the sort of thing I can't predict, right? I can't predict how an embassy is going to behave. For example, let's take Nairobi. Nairobi in the month of July took 373 cases. I feel like they wouldn't do that and then suddenly stop taking cases next month, right? So I feel it's a reasonable prediction to assume they're going to do the same thing again, but they could do more, they could do less. I don't know. I'm not privy to the conversations happening at each of the embassies. So I can't tell you what Kigali or any other embassy will do in terms of their capacity in the next month. I can only show you, and you can look for yourself and see how much capacity that they've actually used over the last few months. And if an embassy is very quiet and they're not giving very many interviews at all, then it's hard to believe they're suddenly going to become a very busy embassy in the last couple of months, right? So you can have a look at that yourself on Zarthis's website. You can see how many interviews are taken. Let me just show you that, just in case. There's a possibility that you've never seen that before. So you can scroll down here, and you can enter the embassy that you're interested in looking at. So look at Rwanda there. You can see that on the 9th of May, which is July interviews, they took 32 cases. In April, they took 30 cases. They took 15 and 16 and 20 in the months previous to that. Seems like they're in a 30 case range, right? And you can see where they've got up to in terms of how many cases they've got. You can also see how many cases per 1,000 they have by looking at this data. I've shown how to do this. If you look at the live session I did last month, I showed how to estimate how many thousands of case numbers could move every month based on the capacity that the embassy is releasing. But I can't predict, precisely what the embassy will do. I can only assume that they're going to do about what they did last month, and they could easily change that. They can go from 30 to 100, right? They could do that overnight. We've seen embassies do that before. Okay. Right. Any updates? This is a good one. Any updates? 2024 winners case number 18172 and 19128. Interview date, please. Of course, I'll give you the precise date. Actually, would you like the time of the interview and the day? Because I can read your mind so well, and I can see the future. I can read your mind and figure out which regions your case numbers are in. Of course I can do that. That doesn't seem a hard thing to do at all. And so with those skills, I can also see the future and say what dates the interview will be. Come on, let's try and use a little bit of common sense here. Do you think there's a chance for VB to stay the same for EU, or what's the prediction? This is what I talked about at the beginning. Like, I mean, there is always that possibility. It's just that it doesn't make sense. So this prediction that was made by this other YouTuber was just such a dopey prediction to make. It doesn't make sense. If you look at the data, if you look at what they're trying to achieve, this guy seems to think there's a pattern in the visa bulletin movement, and there isn't. I mean, that's just wrong thinking. It's very much a reactive situation based on what they're trying to achieve in terms of numbers of visas issued, capacity of the embassies, and so on. Right? It's not, we're trying to make a pretty pattern that matches some previous year. That's not what it's about. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay, I'm a 2025 winner, AF28K. Can you tell us about minor mistakes on the DS260? Good question. Mistakes on the education level are minor. Question mark. I have a high school diploma, but I chose high school, no degree in the DS260. Okay, great question. I'm glad you're asking this one. The drop-down question that is in the DV entry, the original entry that asks you to pick, what level of education you have, high school, no degree, university, no degree, or, something like one of those sort of options. That question in the original DV entry and in your DS260 are both totally irrelevant. They're not important questions. People spend far too much time worrying about their answers given in those questions. They're not relevant at all. In fact, for the DV entry, it's got nothing to do with your chances of selection. I don't believe the data is checked. I've never, ever, in my 12 years of doing this, I've never heard of a case being refused because the person went to the interview and they said, well, on your DV entry or in your DS260, it says you have a high school diploma, but you've got a university degree. And so that question was wrong, and therefore we're refusing it. I've never heard such a ridiculous situation because it doesn't exist. That can't happen. It's not an important question, right? Now, as long as you list your education correctly and you present documentary evidence in the interview, that's all you need to worry about. So don't stress about your questions and your responses to the questions on those two questions on the entry and the DS260 for that question. Try and get it right, but if you didn't get it right, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal, okay? It's a trivial thing. In terms of other minor mistakes, generally speaking, I would tell DV 25 cases at this time of the year, I'm more inclined to tell people to go fix any errors they've made, because having an accurate DS260 is more important than any concerns that someone might have about unlocking. Now, unlocking does not cause delays. I'll argue that till I'm blue in the face, and I know some people disagree with me, and I don't care that those people disagree with me. They're just wrong people. And so, unlocking doesn't cause delays, but later in the year, like for DV 2024 cases now that have all been processed, that are just waiting for final interviews and that sort of thing, I generally don't advise unlocking. And if I do advise unlocking, it's only for important fixes, right? So an important fixes are things to do with your name. If you got your name wrong, you should fix that as early as possible. The completeness of your form is important, but it's not critical, right? So, it's basically name, date of birth, and those sort of personally identifying things that I believe are very highly critical. And you should always correct those. You should always add dependents. Like if you've had a baby or if you've got married, you should always unlock to add for that. Doesn't matter what time of year we're at for those. You should always do that as quickly as possible, because you want those additional derivatives to be on your case. You want to get the green cards for them. So always add those, right? Don't believe this bullshit about unlocking causing delays. It is just bullshit, and it's verifiably bullshit. So just ignore all that. But like I say, that after a period of time for DV 2025, I will stop advising people to just unlock and change everything. And at some point, I would start to move to look, only unlock if you need to unlock, if you've got an important mistake. If you've listed your address history for the last 5 years or something, and you forgot to put the flat number, you've put 123 any street, and then your flat number 5, and you forgot to put flat number 5 in there, nobody gives a damn, right? That's an unimportant thing. It's a historical address. Don't unlock to correct that. That's trivial, right? What would be more important is something like you spelled your name wrong or your spouse's name, that sort of thing. Okay, so hope that helps with your questions. Anyway, Sarah says, "Can my husband's visa refusal affect my visa approval? I am the principal applicant. Refusal 221G." Okay, if the principal is denied, is refused, all the cases in all of the derivatives are automatically refused, right? The reverse is not true. If a derivative is refused, let's say your husband is refused, that does not automatically cause refusal for the principal applicant. It can, in exceptional circumstances, cause concern about public charge and that sort of thing. But in general, the refusal for a husband or for a wife, the derivative spouse, is not going to cause a refusal automatically for the principal applicant. It doesn't work that way. The other way works, that way, like refusal for the principal, that causes refusal for everyone on the case, right? Also, death of the principal applicant causes the case to be lost as well for everybody. You can't process the case in that unfortunate circumstance either. Okay. P.S. Faco says, please, I'm 24, DV24, went for interviewing UK from Accra. They took my passport and told me I will hear from them after 3 weeks. They requested my CV. Is they hope I will get approved? Yeah, of course there's hope you'll get approved. I can't say, there's nothing you said there that says, oh, there's no hope, right? There is obviously hope that you will get approved. Now, I can't guarantee that you'll be approved. You'll just have to wait and see. Okay, but good luck with that. Okay. Let's see. What's wrong with Warsaw for Russians? Any hope for 26K? Yeah, I think there's still good possibility for 26K for Russians at Warsaw. There is a possibility. We'll just have to wait and see. Can Africa hit up to 75K in the next visa bulletin? Yes, I think it can. Any updates? 24 winners, case number. Oh, here we go. Well, it's from Ethiopia. So we now know it's from Ethiopia. But we don't know much more than that. So it's AF 18172. I mean, both of those numbers are within a range that has already been scheduled at Addis Ababa. So the fact that you haven't been scheduled suggests that your DS260s were late in being processed. If they've been processed, they may be scheduled in the next month or 2 months. I really can't say 100% certain whether that will happen or not, but good luck, okay? Do you think EU 30,500 is going current tomorrow? Right, I don't know it's tomorrow for a start. The visa bulletin will be published, I believe, this week, probably by Friday. I expect it to be by Friday. It doesn't always have to be between the 8th and the 15th, but it is possible. Do I think that number is going to go current? Yes. Do I think it will go current in this visa bulletin? Yes. I do. I mean, I'm very sure it's going to go current. Is it going to be in this visa bulletin? I would say I'm 99% sure it will go current in this visa bulletin. Yeah. Which will surprise our friend on that other YouTube channel. So we'll see. I'm a DV lottery winner from Afghanistan living in Kazakhstan. Will US Embassy issue a visa for me while my Kazakhstan visa is expired? Yes. They don't really care about your Kazakhstan visa. That's not really important to the US Embassy in issuing you a United States visa, right? So they can issue that. If they give you some sort of problems, I suggest you print out the new policy, which I pointed out a video and I wrote on my blog. There's a blog article I wrote a week ago that talks about a new policy amendment they've made to the FAM, which is the Foreign Affairs Manual, or the guideline for COs. And there's a section in there that I've suggested people should print out, because it's important now that you have physical presence in a country in order to get interviewed there. You should no longer be challenged to provide a residence visa to be interviewed at a particular embassy. And so, for anyone who's in that position, I would suggest printing out that information and taking it to the interview, and respectfully but politely but firmly pointing out that the FAM guide has been updated, the rules have changed, and that they shouldn't be concerned. They shouldn't be delaying you because you don't have an up-to-date resident visa. Okay, that's what I would do if I were you. Rayak says, you got your interview in July. Thanks for all the help. You're very welcome. Good luck. Prepare well. I'm sure it'll be a breeze. I'm a DV lottery winner from Afghanistan. We talked about that. Oh my God. We got repeating questions here. 24 winner with VN 69K. Is there any chance of getting a 2NL this month at Nairobi Embassy? Yeah, Nairobi is going to get to that number range. I think it'll get into the low 70s perhaps. So yes, I believe it will get to your number range in the month of August. That will be when it will be scheduled. Let's see. Moldova. Any predictions? No, don't really have any predictions for Moldova. Monrovia is the next one. Monrovia didn't take any interviews. That was a bit odd. They have been doing very well month to month. They've been keeping right up to the numbers. And let me just check that they didn't just sneak in. Let's see, Monrovia. Does happen sometimes. I get in my head the information wrong, and that's happened. Yeah. So on the 31st of May, they did take 90 cases in Monrovia. So they're slap up to date. Again, they've been getting up to date every month. So this was good, and they just had the very late. I remember they had a late update of their ready status, so they had cases staying in transit for a little while. But they're right up to. So again, let me just show you this so that people can see. What I'm looking at is the data for Monrovia. I can see they took 90 cases on May 31st. And the number that they've got to in terms of scheduling is in the 66 to 68,000 range. In other words, right up to date, right? No backlog at all. Very good situation to be in, right? So you at 73K in Monrovia, you've got an excellent chance because you're going to go current, I believe. And Monrovia is an excellent embassy, so you've got a very good chance, okay? Good luck to you. Let's see. Thank you for all the great advice. Got my immigrant visa on 6/3/24, Kenya, AF42K. Great. Kindly advise. I know there's a fee of 220 when I get to the US next month. When do I pay it, and where do I pay it? Firstly, that fee has changed. I think it's now $230. Some of the fees have gone up just recently, and that's one of the fees that went up. It's changed slightly. So do check the fee level. You can pay it either just before you travel or just after you travel. It doesn't make a lot of difference. There are some people who believe, and I tend to be one of them, that paying the fee just before you travel to America could result in a slightly faster delivery of your green card. But there's no real proof of that. That's just an assumption. You pay it online at a system called Ellis, and you are given instructions when you receive your visa packet. You're given instructions on how to pay that. So just follow the instructions, but you'll pay that online at a system called Ellis. Some people struggle with making the payment because their credit card is from outside of the USA. So for some people, they wait until they've entered the USA, and then they can buy a local credit card. They can buy a prepaid credit card and pay that way, or get a friend to pay it in the USA. So, so yeah, have a go with that. See if you can pay it online. And as I say, it doesn't really matter, I don't think, whether you pay it before or after you travel. Okay. 30K from Ethiopia. I believe I'll go to US. One thing I want to know is I want to learn. Go there. Go there. How expensive? Oh, is to learn MSc there, because that's what I want to do there first. Wow. I think the first thing you can focus on, Bereket, is your English skills. Brush up on your English so that you can type a message that is easy for people to read and digest. I think you're asking me about how expensive it is to get education in the USA. The answer is it's very expensive, right? But if you want to work in the USA, the most highly respected degrees are going to be ones from the USA, right? There are a few countries where they have outstanding universities that are well known to people, even in the USA, and employers and recruiters might value degrees from those places. But I'm talking the likes of, I don't know, Oxford and Cambridge, for example, from the UK. And, you know, generally speaking, I would say the average recruiter doesn't know which are the good schools in many other countries, right? Whereas they would understand which are good schools in the USA. But a master's degree or any degree in the USA from an American college can be very expensive to obtain. Some Americans find themselves getting into extremely high debt numbers. So you definitely have to look for scholarships and be wise about how you finance your education here. You can offset a lot of the costs by getting creative with and diligent about applying for scholarships. There are lots of scholarships available. My own brother, for example, set up a foundation in our parents' name, and my brother provides a lot of support, and he only provides support to underprivileged kids from inner cities who tend to be African Americans, and he simply does things like buying a computer for them, providing them a check, various things like that. So he's actually got two foundations he's set up, one in both sets of parents as a remembrance of those parents. And there are lots of people like my brother who do the same thing. And so you can apply for these scholarships, and that you can get them from here and here and here and here. And maybe you only get $250 from one place and $500 from another, but it all adds up. And so you can offset the costs. So you just have to be smart about applying for those scholarships and learn about how to get those. Okay. Good luck with that anyway. Already answered that question. What about Ankara? Ankara are going to do the same thing. They're behind. They're very backlogged. They're going to remain backlogged. They're not interviewing enough cases by any means. They're focusing more on IR cases, which is immediate relative cases. That's what they're going to do until the end of the year, I'm sure. So yeah, I don't have a lot of hope that they are suddenly going to change. And even if they do, the damage is done. They're not going to reach very high numbers in Ankara. There's going to be a lot of unhappy people in Ankara. And only a few people will have had the sense to and the forethought to change their embassy. So it may still be possible to change your embassy. If you're stuck in Ankara, maybe you can get somewhere else, but time is getting very short, right? So, you know, it's a matter of how much effort are you prepared to put into that. But get on with it. If you think you can move now. Okay. Hey, do you think there would be good chances for DV 2026 to be available? Plus, could someone take part in it before finishing one's grade 12 high school or by the visa interview? Okay, DV 2026 will happen, right? Even if Trump were to win, and Trump has been outspoken against the DV lottery, he can't just cancel the DV lottery. He and his party could introduce a law, but that law has to pass through Congress and then has to be signed by Trump. And immigration change through legal, through law changes is very hard to achieve, right? There's not good consensus within all parts of either one of the parties, right? Very hard to achieve that. So the DV lottery will continue for DV 2026. Can you take part in it before finishing grade 12? Yes, you can. The timeline is such that you can enter, let's say you enter this October coming, right? That would be DV 2026. The results are not made available until the following May, and interviews don't start until the following October. So for DV 2026, it'll be between October of 25 and September 30th of 26 when interviews happen. So you could be in grade 12 now, not finished yet, or even just starting grade 12. But as long as you've finished your education to that level needed by the time of your interview, then that's fine. So there isn't actually a minimum age limit for DV lottery, but you just have to have met the requirements by the time of the interview. Okay, so good luck. Do try and enter. It's a free entry, right? Okay. Hi, Simon. Looking at the unscheduled cases in July, can we expect another jump in the VB for Asia, say 2,000 to 3,000? Yes. Not because of the unscheduled cases necessarily, but yes, I believe there'll be another increase for Asia. 2,000 to 3,000 sounds sensible. So, probably in that range. What do you think of the Stockholm Embassy, Sweden? It's fine. There's nothing particularly wrong with it. So there you go. It's fine. If you could be more specific about your question, I could tell you a bit more of an answer. Oh, there's Strauss repeating the question again. Cheza sounds like a very British way of quoting a name here. DV25, OC, and a very low case number, like less than 100. My husband won the visa lottery. I just recently found a discrepancy on the spelling of my father's first name. Okay, his name is Crispy Niano, but I entered Crispy. Will this matter? No, it won't matter. But you have time to go and unlock your DS260. Go and do that, right? It's not a problem, but it's your father's name anyway, so it's not the biggest deal. It's not really a problem. But do correct it, because why not? Why wouldn't you? You can unlock, you can correct it, it won't cause delay. Okay? What about DV24 EU36K in August or September? If it gets current, which I think it will, I believe still that my earlier estimations that EU would get to about 35 to 37. I think that's about right. And so it's in that range. So, there's a good chance that it will get current. But let's say that's more likely to be September than August. I don't know that we're going to see a jump to that number in this coming visa bulletin that's going to be published this coming week. Okay. Mayra says, this is Mayra from Peru. Bienvenido. Please help us to know if our embassy is working good. Lima. My case number is SA 2024-42. Any chance for us? Okay, so for 2024, your number at 4,200 and something is quite high, and that's the biggest risk. In terms of Lima, I think they're doing fine. Let me just check that. No, they're not doing fine. Well, hang on a minute. Let me just look at OC specifically. What am I doing? Yes. Let's say. There we go. South America. They are current. Yeah, they're doing fine. On scheduling, they're doing fine. They're taking as many cases as they need to take. They're not backlogged. They're right up to date. So Lima is okay. The question is your number okay? And my estimation is that I think your number is going to be too high. At 4,200, I think you're going to be too high, and therefore won't get an interview, I'm sorry to say. But wait and see. I can't be 100% certain about these predictions, particularly the final predictions. There has been some years where some weird stuff has happened. So, let's wait and see what happens. Okay. If somebody has gotten a 2NL and they want to unlock due to small corrections, should I write an email to the embassy? Sometimes the embassy doesn't respond, and it's Nairobi embassy. Yeah, Nairobi is very, very busy, so they don't generally respond well to people asking them questions. You really should have unlocked before you went current. But never mind. You want some small corrections. Basically, you'll just do those at the interview. You can email and ask to unlock, but if they're small corrections, don't even bother. It's too late now for the major things like name corrections and that sort of thing. So don't even bother about that. Just go to the interview, and if you have to make some tiny corrections there, you can make them in the interview. Okay. Will they reach up to 90K for 2023? Well, 2023 is way over. That's not running anymore. I think you probably mean 2024. Will they go up to 90K? Do you mean for Africa? We're being kind of random with our accuracy here, Elijah, right? They might get to AF 90K in 2024, if that's what you mean. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm not very confident that they will get to 90K, but we'll know a little bit more after the next visa bulletin. That might already go to, let's blow our minds and say they make that up to 80,000. Then 90,000 looks a little bit easier, right? But we'll have to wait and see. We'll just wait and see. What's the situation in Accra? Terrible. The Accra embassy, again, this month took 20 interviews. That's not enough. They are not really likely to get above Africa 7,000, maybe 8,000 at a push. That's a mess. That's terrible. It's shameful. It's disgraceful behavior on part of the Accra U.S. Embassy. They know damn well that these visas are a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They know damn well that they sunset on September 30th of the fiscal year. And yes, immediate relative cases are important, but they could do more effort for DV lottery cases. They could. They just choose not to. So it's a mess. I wish they wouldn't do that. Why the Ankara give 50 interviews per month? Why are they only giving a limited number? It's immediate relative cases, again, same as Accra. They are prioritizing IR cases, immediate relative cases, who are immediate relatives, parents and children of US citizens, right? So that is the highest priority that any embassy should look at. But what they're supposed to do is juggle their capacity. And Ankara and Accra, for example, have juggled wrong. They've preferred way too strongly the IR classes over the DV class of visa. I'm fed up with it, but there's nothing we can do to change their behavior. When will 2NL for Yaoundé be sent? Probably this month for August interviews. Okay, let me take a couple more questions here. Action Minister says, I'm a DV winner in Ghana, but I have not received my interview date and my case number is current. If your case number is above 8,000 in Africa, you're not going to get your interview in Accra. Accra are going to disappoint you. They're going to screw you up. And you have a very small window of opportunity left. Very small. So listen up. If you're in Accra or if you're in Ankara, the only opportunity that many of you have to get your green cards that you should receive, right, is to move to another country. And and get the embassy in that country to contact KCC on your behalf to ask them to schedule your case at their embassy. It's hard to do. I'm not saying that everybody is going to be able to achieve that. Some will, though. Some will try and some will manage it. And so a few people will be saved that way. I got a message from someone the other day who had done exactly that. And they managed to get another embassy to help them. So, some people will try it, but that's the only chance you got left. If you just sit and wait for Ankara and Accra, you're going to lose your chance. It's as simple as that. Okay. I want to launch a blog. Should I contact KCC and let them know about it? Why would KCC care about you starting a blog? Nobody cares about that. No, you shouldn't let them know about it. I mean, not that it would harm you in any way to let KCC know, but it's got nothing to do with them. It's not interesting to them at all. But good luck with it. It's a lot of work. Okay. Can we travel on vacation on B1, B2 while waiting for the 2NL? Will there be any problem at the airport there? No problem. People that have B1, B2 visas can still enter the USA while their DS-260 is being processed, for example, while the lottery win is happening. Same thing for ESTA or any other visa class. The submission of the DS-260 makes it more difficult to apply for a new visa, but not use an existing visa that you already have, right? So very, very rarely do I hear of anybody that tries to enter the USA on a non-immigrant visa and they're questioned because they've got a DV lottery win. It's technically possible, but just rare, okay? If it does happen, be very honest, right? For goodness sake, don't lie. Just be very honest. And, if you're entering the USA and you intend to adjust status, if you intend to at that point, then being honest means being honest about that fact too, right? Just be honest in any situation, right? Don't lie. It's just bad news, bad idea to lie, okay? So just be honest. All right. DRC did not receive 2NL last month. Do you think they will send more 2NL this month? I don't know. I hope so. Is that right? DRC didn't take any. No, he took some. Oh, hang on. No, it's not refreshed. DRC. Come on. Come on, Zarthisius. Your website's a little bit slow, mate. Let's see. Let's see. Demo. There you go. No, they didn't take any. Okay, so yeah, they didn't take any 2NLs. Will they take double? I don't know. I hope so, but I can't be sure that they will. Okay. How about Addis Ababa embassy progress for DV winners, please? I've calculated several times. I think Addis are going to get to about 27 or 28,000, somewhere in that range, for scheduling. And when they go this coming month, they're going to go through the 22,000 range, and that will cause them to add a few lower case numbers. They'll fill in some gaps, what might be called some gaps. So we'll see a few of those cases, and that could happen at 22,000 and at 26,500. That's because of the way that AV queues work, AV status queue. So anyway, I think Addis will get to about 27, 28. If you're Addis 40,000 or something, then you're not going to get interviewed at Addis. And again, you need to move. But again, hopefully, if you were in that position, you've been listening to me, because I've been shouting about Addis since January, I think, saying, for goodness sake, if you're above 30,000 or so, move. And I've refined those numbers more recently for several times. I've demonstrated how I've calculated that. And they're scheduling about 120 cases per month, and they have about 30,000, 30 cases per thousand, 31 per thousand. So it's very obvious where they're going to get to. Okay. Okay. 2024 7180 Acra. When should the person expect the E2NL? Hopefully in August, for August interview, maybe for September interview, but we'll have to see. EU31K, Tbilisi. Now, Tbilisi just took some cases. They took 182 cases on the 21st of May. And that took them to, let me just check EU. Yeah, that took them to right up to current. So they're not backlogged at all. They took a nice chunk of cases, big increase from previous months. So that was kind of good to see. You can see there what they've taken. This is their effort. They had taken 108 the previous month, 46 the month before that. Well, 46 and 84 together, so 120, 130. So they did 48 in January, 130 in February, nothing in March, oddly, right? But then in April they took 108, and then 182 for the month of July interviews, right? So that's cool, and they're right up to date. You can see they're right up to EU 27,000 something. So they're right up to date. So that's good news. So yes, you've got good chance. I think EU will go current above 31,000, probably in this next visa bulletin. And it seems like your embassy is determined to interview all of the people that are current. So good luck. Should be okay. Hi Simon, where can I get all those statistics online? Could you share the link? The statistics I'm showing here are from Zarthisius's site. I'll put that in. I'll put that in the chat. So you've got the link for his amazing website, which all that data comes from the SEAC system. He extracts the data from the SEAC system and presents all sorts of very valuable information that teaches us a lot about how the lottery is going. Now, we have that for DV 2024 at the moment. We don't have any of that data for DV 2025, and we won't have it yet. We won't have it until January the 1st. That's just the way it works every year. We have to wait until the 1st of January every year to get the new year's worth of data. And when we get that, it's awesome because we then get the full picture of what case numbers were assigned. We see the full charts. We see the curve of the the distribution of cases, as you can see here. So we get to see, for example, if we look at Asia, you get to see things like you can deduce when Nepal cases cut off, when Iran cases cut off, and so on. Same thing in EU. You can see the cutoffs there for Uzbekistan, Russia, and those sort of countries. So it's fantastic data. I can't wait to get my hands on it for DV25, but in the meantime, it's helping us understand DV24. Okay. Please like the live, then many can see it. What a great point, Kevin TV7. Please do like the live. How many likes? I got 3 likes. Come on. Everybody who's listening now, we've got 300 people watching, according to my thing, and I've got 3 likes. Really? Come on. 299 people watching. I'm sure we can get a few more likes. Please do like the video, please. Okay. Let me just see if I can take a couple more interesting questions. Oh, this is a nice one. I like this. I like this sort of thing. Daniela says, "Hey, Brent, thanks so much for the last year when we made it. Interview went well. Moving date will be 4th of July. Independence Day, right? Yeah, you're going to move on the 4th of July. It's fireworks. So your first day in the country will be all about fireworks. And hopefully that will be a positive sign for your future here in America. So best of luck to you. Okay. I'm a DV winner. I put my names in the wrong order. Any solution about that? Yes. So if your DV lottery entry had your names in the wrong order in any way, or that you have a misspelled name or a misspelling or a miscalculated date of birth, any of those sort of errors, correct them in the DS260. That's how you do it. You correct it in the DS260. Make sure you don't repeat that that mistake and correct it. Now, don't do what some people do, which is go and correct the documentation to match the bad data that they put in the DV lottery. I had this comment from someone the other day, and I'm just like mind blown that someone thinks that that's a good idea, that they go and get new versions of the birth certificate and a passport and everything else. It says something awful about your country when you're doing that. It says something terrible about a country's documentation standards that's a possibility, but it also says something about your brain thinking, and your brain thinking is not really thinking well. You need to use the smarticle particles up here, and you don't change your documents to match a mistake. You fix the mistake, and the way to fix it is in the DS260. Okay. Can I talk about Abu Dhabi performance? I don't want to talk about Abu Dhabi at the moment because they haven't bloody well answered my email. I can't quite believe they haven't answered my email. I emailed them about a particular issue. I would normally expect a result, a reply from them, and they haven't answered me back. But anyway, so let's just quickly check Abu Dhabi for you. In terms of their performance, right? It is one that people tend to want to know about. So they took, on the 8th of May, they took 44 cases, right? If we look at where they are for Africa, they are backlogged for Africa. They've only scheduled up to about 42,000. For Asia, they've scheduled up to about 10,000, which is slightly backlogged, right? For EU, if there's any EU cases, they're a little bit backlogged there. So they have the appearance of a slightly backlogged embassy. 44 cases being scheduled is not enough. But I have a feeling that Abu Dhabi would always try hard to schedule as many cases as possible. They've always appeared to me fairly diligent, hardworking, good consular officers, etc., that know their stuff and understand the DV program. So I'm hopeful that they will catch up and not be backlogged. But I'm also hopeful, Abu Dhabi, that you will answer my bloody email. Okay, thank you. I'd appreciate that. It's kind of important email for you to answer. All right, so let's see. Yeah, just seeing if I can find an interesting. Can DV lottery be cancelled after the election if Trump gets elected, since this is what he wants? I think I've talked about that earlier. Trump isn't a king. Trump wouldn't be a king if he got elected. He's a convicted felon now. And he's likely to get convicted again. But he can't just, like a king, just make a decision. There's a whole government process that goes on here. And it takes agreement from both sides to agree things. There are a lot of politicians that would like to see immigration being reformed, to go to a more skills-based system. Maybe take the DV lottery visas, 55,000 visas, and maybe make them available for more skills-based type cases, which in theory would be good for America. But it's a very small budget of the overall immigration budget, 55,000 visas. And our world seems to revolve around those 55,000 visas. But we forget there are about 1 million visas, green cards, given out each year. And so DV lottery is only a very small part of it. It's 5% of the overall budget, right? It's not very much at all. There's many more cases given out for family, for work bases, even asylum. So it just isn't that big of a deal. So when they try and get the politicians to agree, which is difficult, they're not likely to focus on very small problems just because Trump says so, right? It's just not the way it's going to work. And Trump is just such an awful person that he's not likely to cause people to get to agree on things. He's more likely to divide. And by dividing, he ensures that nothing gets done, which some people in America like that. They love politicians that stop progress. So some people like that. It's craziness to me, but that's what some people like. So and Trump is the perfect politician for stopping any sort of sensible progress and conversation. Can't get a damn thing agreed because he's just such a divisive dickhead, basically. So when is going to be the lottery again? In October. It'll open in October. Okay. Let me just focus on this question. It's a good question to just finish off with. The question is, do I need to do a medical and pay visa fee for my child, which I want to leave behind and get her to come, get her, I guess, to come on a later date. So let's talk about that. This is really a question of timing. It's like, how much later do you want to bring your daughter? Do you want to bring her a few months after you come to America, or a few years? If you're prepared to wait years, and I do mean years, I mean 2 to 5 years, then you don't have to bring her through the DV lottery process. Therefore, you don't have to pay for the medicals or the interview fee for the child during the DV lottery process, because instead you'll come to America. Then at some point you'll file an I-130 family case for your daughter, and that will take at least a couple of years, could be up to 5 years, for that to go through. But that's a long time. That's a very slow process. It's slower, it's more expensive, it's more complicated. You'll probably need a lawyer to help you through that. It seems silly to go through that process when what you could do instead is bring your daughter to the interview, pay the fees. I know it's expensive, but pay the fees now, pay for the medical now. And then you get your you would all get your visas, your daughter included, and hers and yours will have a 6-month delay before you have to enter. It's 6 months after the medical date, actually. So you get 6 months to enter. So basically, you then get on a plane as quickly as possible to get to America, start getting a job, get some money in the bank, get to a position where you can provide a safe environment for your daughter, and then bring her across. And do that before the 6 months, right? That would be my recommendation, unless you really understand the delays that will be caused if you go down the family route. Okay, so I'm glad you asked that question, because I don't think people realize how slow it is to bring family members through the I-130 route. It is slow and complicated and expensive. So generally speaking, you don't want to do that. Okay. All right, everybody, we'll call that a day. My throat is sore and I need to stop talking and rest my throat. So thank you for joining me today. I appreciate that. Please do subscribe to the channel. Please give me a thumbs up on this video, and let me know if you've got any other questions that I didn't get to. You can ask those questions at britsimonsays.com. britsimonsays.com. Okay? Thank you. Bye-bye now.